In the beginning, before maps and kingdoms, before the sun had been named, there was silence. And from that silence came the first breath of life. That breath did not whisper through Europe or Asia. No. It roared through the heart of a land bathed in heat, soil the color of firewood, and skies that stretched like eternity. That land was Africa. From its rivers, the waters of life flowed. From its soil, the bones of the first humans emerged. Not legend, not theory. Truth. Truth carved in stone, resting beneath layers of forgotten time. Long before pyramids pierced the sky, before books were written or prophets were named, black people walked this earth, heads high, eyes to the heavens. We were not born in chains, we were born in majesty. The world hides this. They teach you beginnings that start in Rome, in Babylon, in Jerusalem. But they forget, or they deliberately silence, the fact that all those roads trace back to Africa. The land of the beginning. The mother. The first heartbeat. Science confirms it now, reluctantly. From mitochondrial Eve to the bones of Lucy. From the Great Rift Valley to the Nile's gentle whisper, everything points back to one truth. The first humans were black. The first civilization was black. And yet, this has been buried beneath centuries of colonial dust. They told us Adam was pale. They painted him in marble white. But where would a pale man survive under an unforgiving sun? How would a body lacking melanin thrive in the furnace of the beginning? No, the first man, the real Adam, was dark-skinned, with hair like wool and skin like obsidian. He was carved by fire and kissed by the sun. So was Eve. And from their union came not just a race, but humanity itself. The Bible speaks of Eden, a paradise between four rivers. Two of them, the Tigris and Euphrates, are familiar. But the other two, the Gihon and the Pishon, they flow through lands of gold and onyx, lands Ethiopia and scholars call Kush. Ethiopia, not the modern nation, but the ancient realm stretching across Nubia, Kush, and beyond. That, my brother, my sister, is the forgotten Eden. That is the soil from which man rose. And when the flood came, and Noah's ark rested upon the mountains, the sons of Noah stepped forward. Shem, Ham, and Japheth. It was Ham, the father of black nations, who birthed the kingdoms of Kush, Mizraim, and Canaan. But they twisted that story too. They said Ham was cursed, that blackness was punishment. A lie repeated until it grew roots. But the truth? The curse was not color. The curse was their fear of our greatness. Because from Ham's line came engineers, builders, warriors, and kings. From Ham came the pyramids, still standing as eternal witnesses to African genius.
They don't want you to know that Moses, the prophet of law, was raised in a black African kingdom. That Joseph, betrayed by his brothers, found power and wealth in the house of Pharaoh, black pharaohs. They don't want you to see that Jesus, when hunted as an infant, found refuge in Egypt, in Africa, not Europe. That when his life was threatened, he fled to the land of black people for protection. Think deeply about that. They whitewashed angels. They painted prophets with blue eyes. They hid the locks and the brown skin. They scrubbed Africa from scripture. But scripture whispers if you listen. Solomon loved the Queen of Sheba, an African queen who walked with wisdom and beauty. Zipporah, Moses' wife, was a woman of Kush. Paul was mistaken for an Egyptian. And Simon of Cyrene, the man who helped carry the cross, came from Libya, North Africa. Still, they hid this from you. Because to know that God moved through Africa is to know that Africa is not cursed but chosen. That blackness is not burden but blessing. That melanin is more than pigment. It is the signature of the divine. History speaks if you learn how to listen. The Nile Valley civilizations did not learn from Greece. Greece learned from them. Pythagoras studied in Kemet. Plato echoed the teachings of the Egyptian temples. The library of Alexandria was not filled by Greeks. It was filled by African scribes, priests, and philosophers. They do not tell you this in school. They do not print it in your textbooks. Because truth in the hands of the oppressed is revolution. The story of the black man did not begin in slavery.
It began in divinity. We were kings before we were cargo. We were queens before we were commodities. And long before the ships came, our hands shaped iron, gold, language, astronomy, and law. The Dogon people knew the stars before telescopes were made. Timbuktu housed libraries when Europe was still bathing once a year. We built, we thrived. And when they came, they didn't civilize us. They interrupted us. Colonialism didn't bring light, it cast shadows. It erased names, it burned traditions, it chained bodies and severed tongues. But what it could never destroy was the soul of Africa. That soul still sings in drumbeats. It still dances in rhythms passed down through generations. It still cries out in the blood of the diaspora, from Harlem to Haiti, from Soweto to Salvador. The spirit of the ancestors is not dead, it is awakening. They fear that awakening. That is why they fear your knowledge. Because once you understand your origin, you understand your power, and a people who know their power cannot be controlled. So they gave you false heroes. They told you your gods were demons. They stole your stories and made them their own. But now the tide is turning. Now the sons and daughters of the sun are rising. And as the world spins, the truth is resurfacing, like bones rising from the earth to tell their tale.
You are not lost. You are not forgotten. You are the children of greatness. You carry the DNA of creation. When you walk, Africa walks. When you speak, the ancestors sing. When you rise, the world trembles. That is why they hid your past. Because if you ever knew who you were, you would no longer ask to be free. You would simply be free. The real origin of black people is not one story. It is 1,000 echoes, 1,000,000 flames. It is science, it is scripture, it is spirit, and all of them say the same thing. You are the beginning. So stand tall, child of the Nile. Walk boldly, descendant of Kush. Speak truth, heir of Kemet. You are not less, you are first. And to those who still doubt, let them look to the soil, let them look to the stars, let them look into the mirror of time. The evidence is there. Africa is not the child of the world. Africa is the mother. This is the truth they never told you. But now, you know. And once you know, you cannot unknow. Rise, reclaim, remember, because the story of Africa